on any given day, I'm not going to do it all. On any given day, I'm not going to knock it out of the park at work. I'm not going to knock it out of the park as Mrs. Winderley. I'm not going to knock it out of the park as a wife and a mom at the same time.
Yeah.
I have days where I kill it at motherhood.
Yeah.
And I have days where the mom guilt kills me.
We have the incredible and evergreen Sherinne Winderley. From fashion to food, from beer to banking, all without holding your traditional 9 to 5.
I believe that everything I'm building and I have built as a result of being a fan of the long game. I'm not into short and cheerful and, those sorts of things. I think that you need to build. You have to differentiate yourself. You can't be the same as everybody else. What builds a good brand is consistency. What builds a good brand is sweating your assets, they call it, sweating your assets. So like I have certain assets as Mrs. Winderley, my life experiences, things. Just because I've mentioned 23rd Princess once doesn't mean I only mention it once, because I don't know. So that's an asset that I sweat. You will see it's a common theme in what I speak about because it's such a key part in what I do. Because I think that failure is such a badge of honor, and I think that failure is such a great source of fuel for what you want to do. I said, what's made the biggest difference to me over the past 5 years is I admitted feeling defeated.
Right.
I didn't admit defeat.
Welcome to it once again. This is the podcast where we ignite your light and keep it burning bright. You're plugged in with us on EXC-i8. In studio today, we have the incredible and evergreen Sherinne Winderley, more affectionately known as Mrs. Winderley. She's worked in advertising, she's worked in content creation, and a motivational speaker. And she's worked with every kind of brand you can think of. From fashion to food, from beer to banking, all without holding your traditional 9 to 5. Sherinne, thank you for being here in studio with us today.
Thank you for having me. That's the first time I've ever been called evergreen.
Well, it seems like you don't age. Hey?
Well, thank you.
What is the secret behind that?
Botox.
Purely just Botox?
No, it's normal things. But like I'm a mom of 2 small humans. I have a day job and side hustles and lots of stuff. So I can't say it's sleep. But I think that what helps you not to age is actually just doing what you love, every day.
Right.
That's fun. If you enjoy waking up in the mornings, it'll make you look younger.
Oh, that sounds fantastic.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
anyway.
Good pro tip, good lifestyle tip. We just threw that in there. So, Sherinne, I've read a description where you describe yourself as a writer, speaker, and failure. So why lead with failure?
Failure for me is such an interesting space. And I think the first couple of weeks that I had failure in my bio, and I started out with it on my social media bio, and then it's filtered into everything.
Right.
And a lot of people say to me, they send me direct messages saying, don't call yourself a failure. That's such a negative thing to say. Don't be so down on yourself. You're not a failure. And I thought to myself, there's so much power in failure, because anybody who's ever been successful in anything has failed. If you're not prepared to fail, you're never going to succeed at anything. And I entered a beauty pageant for married women in my late 30s, and it was a very unusual thing for me to do. And I did this 13-month journey. There's a great pageant land word for you. And I came out at the end. I was a finalist, but I wasn't a top 5. I wasn't a top 3. I didn't win any special award. Like, I failed at the pageant process. If the goal of pageantry is to win a title, then I'd failed at that. But there was something for me so empowering about owning failure, because I think that failure is such a badge of honor, and I think that failure is such a great source of fuel for what you want to do. I said what's made the biggest difference to me over the past 5 years is I admitted feeling defeated.
Right.
I didn't admit defeat.
Right.
And I don't think that enough of us as humans admit when we feel like a failure. I don't think we like to say we failed. We like to take the high ground and be the bigger person and all these sorts of things. But if you can own failure and use it as a constructive fuel rather than a destructive excuse, then that's the winning formula.
Well, you've hit the nail on the head there, because I was just about to sort of ask the question, or rather segue into a part of the conversation where, you've taken this word failure, which has so many negative stigmas and connotations behind it, right? The word itself is negative. but you found or made a use of it as a term of endearment, a term of empowerment, right? And are there any other moments in life? I mean, you mentioned when we spoke in the car, you mentioned, you know, periods of rejection and things like that. Are there any other moments you mentioned in the pageantry where you sort of were a failure in that essence? Were there any other moments in your career, in your life, where you feel or felt like you'd learned something from that experience of failing at something?
Well, I think yes, you know, because failure for me, just to backtrack a bit, I think I will proudly be called a failure.
Right.
Because it means I'm trying.
Right.
And that sounds so cheesy to say, but it means I'm trying. And I think that, you know, failing in my late 30s, that was definitely not the first time I had failed. You know, I feel like I've spent a lot of my life on the short list.
Yeah.
You know, I joke with friends, like, I don't need to be on the A list as long as I'm on a list somewhere. But I've always been second. You know that saying, like, always a bridesmaid, never a bride?
Right.
That's happened to me since childhood. You know, I would get very close to something,
yes,
but not be chosen.
Yes.
And I think it was very interesting to start to figure out that, because I'm a hard worker, I'm a high functioning person, and I like 1 + 1 = 2. But I think a watershed moment for me was learning that hard work is not always rewarded.
Yes.
It's a hard pill to swallow, that hard work is not always
pill to
rewarded.
swallow.
You know, and I think growing up as a child, there were lots of failures for me. I mean, I grew up with a really confidence-crushing stutter. I was always backstage. And it took a long time for me I was like, no, I'm comfortable backstage. That's where I belong. I want to do the lighting and the choreography for the play. I don't want to be in the play. You know, I was always really happy to be behind the scenes. I think in advertising, you know, as a creative, you get to write the script, but you're behind the camera.
Yeah.
Other people are in the spotlight. Other people actually make the work.
Yeah.
And I had to admit to myself that, no, I actually wasn't made for backstage. There was a part of me that always wanted to be front of stage. That always wanted to make the work, not just direct somebody else to make the product, right? And make the work.
So at what point do you connect with that part of you that wants to come to the forefront? At what point do you feel, okay, you're ready to make that switch?
So for me, it was the morning after the Mrs. South Africa final.
Okay.
You know, I woke up at Emperor's Palace. I was packing up, you know, the heels and the sash and all the trappings of a week of finals week. And I'd cried so hard the night before, ugly cried the night before, that one of my lash extensions, I'd like cried off completely. And I looked at myself in the mirror. I was sitting on the floor in Empress Palace on the carpets around all this pageantry stuff. And I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, okay, I'm going to make them miss me.
Yeah.
I was like, I felt, and I hadn't realized how invested I'd been in external recognition and validation until that morning.
Yes.
Because I was really sad. And that disappointment, it also made me realize that there was something in that pageantry experience that I was now starting to mourn. So it had turned a light switch on. So there were parts of pageantry that I had really enjoyed. And I was really sad, thinking, okay, well, now it's over. I don't get to do those things anymore. And I was like, no, man, I get to take the parts of it that I really enjoyed and do them myself. I don't need the framework of a pageant to be Mrs. Winderley and do what Mrs. Winderley wants to do.
Yes.
So there was that turning point. It was, you know, I always say, I love that. I always say, like, I engaged my inner J-Hud. Jennifer Hudson, her story, right? So I don't think she even made the top 5 or whatever it was, right? So she didn't win in that process. But, you know, she's gone on to win an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, a Tony, to be a judge on, you know, I think it's called X Factor or The Voice or one of those singing competitions. So I always say, like, the shift was I decided to engage my inner Jennifer Hudson.
Right.
I was like, huh.
Yeah.
I don't need an external thing. I just need to take what's internal and turn it up.
Yes. So then, okay, is this now where you then take to social media? You create an Instagram or TikTok account and you just begin to speak into the camera, but speaking to yourself or with an audience in the back of your mind?
I think that's when I started to take it seriously.
Right.
I had always enjoyed social media. I
Right.
think it's important that there'll be things in your life that you gravitate to naturally. And I had someone in agency because I was posting, not consistently, from about 2017. And they would see me post, and one of the digital guys, he said, you know, you could actually do this. Like, you could be a content creator. You need to start tagging a brand or two and taking it seriously. So I had started on Instagram to explore that. I became Mrs. Winderley. I decided that was my handle, and then it was. But when I kind of done that, and then you needed it for pageantry, and I'd needed it a bit for my job, and to stay kind of current and know what was going on. But after Mrs. South Africa, I didn't know who I was as a content creator. I felt like a fraud showing up on camera because I felt like I was playing a role. I'd adopted so many of the uniforms and the sort of the templates, I like to call them, of what I thought a content creator should be.
Right.
And I was in this place where I really felt like I'd been completely like just shattered, and I was just broken, and I was in this place to put pieces back together. And I think it was okay. I want to be on social media. I enjoy it. I'm scared to be 100% myself on Instagram because I had a little bit of a following there. And one of the youngsters at the office said, you should get on TikTok. And I was like, you're mad. I'm 40. I've got no place on TikTok. So I did it to actually prove him wrong. I said, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And the brief I gave to myself was, I'm going to speak to the woman I was 2 years ago. So what do I know now that I didn't know then? And I've always said that my entire reason for being on social media is that I'm here to build, not break.
Yeah.
Build, not break. So whether it's replying to a comment, a negative comment, I can reply to it. Maybe it was nasty, but I'm going to use my response in a way to do something that is constructive and building.
Yes.
You know, that, and that was it. And so TikTok honestly was a surprise. 100,000 followers in 6 months for me was huge. And I think what's helped me to stay myself, stay consistent, build the community I have is that I always approach the camera, I always approach a piece of content as I'm just speaking to myself in my bedroom again. I don't let the number start to make me adopt those templates again, because it's so easy to go, I need to be like everybody. I need to do what they're doing, or they're doing something better than. No, you've just got to show up authentically as yourself. And that is super scary in the beginning, but it is so liberating once you get the hang of it. It is freeing.
You mentioned, look, that is such an interesting and valid point, right? Because I know I myself as well, there was a point in time where I tried to, sort of do what you do. And, you speak, you got a message you want to share, you speak into the camera, but I'm not speaking into the camera from the sense that I'm speaking to myself. Maybe other content creators do that too, but you're always thinking about the audience. How are they going to receive this? Are they going to criticize or judge what I look like, what I'm wearing, how I'm pronouncing a certain word? And is that sort of the key behind why you do it so confidently, that you're not thinking about the audience, you're just being true to yourself and speaking to yourself, because you really do an exquisite job at it. And one would never say that you were a stutterer, or, you've had so much experience with, being a failure. So, what is that really the essence of the secret behind being confident in front of the camera?
Well, I think there's two ways I want to respond to that.
Yeah.
Because I think, it's the one thing is, you say, I did have a stutter. I think a key part of my journey, that word never gets out of your system, over the past 5 years is I have come to realize that I have a very strong faith, and I've come to believe that God locked down my vocal cords because I had nothing of value to say. The moment I had something of value to say, he was like, right, we're going to let her speak, because she's finally figured out how she can use her voice in a valuable way. So when that confidence of being 100% myself, yes, I'm speaking to myself initially. I was speaking to who I was 2 years ago. Then I'm just speaking to a woman. I don't think of myself as speaking to an audience. I'm speaking to a human. Yeah. And what is remarkable is something will be placed on your heart. You'll feel like you need to say something. And I've learned to answer those things. I would be in the car and a thought will pop in my head, and I'll stop at a petrol station and I'll do a candid piece of content. And then I'll receive a DM from someone, and they needed it. It was so perfectly timed and so aimed at them. So I don't need 1 million views. I need one view on that piece of content, if that's the person who actually needs to receive it.
Yeah.
And I think that helps take off the pressure.
So it's sort of no structure or plan behind it. It's just intuitive, in the moment. You got a message, or you feel like something needs to be said, and you shoot, and there we go.
I think when I started, and I had to post 3 times a day to be consistent, because I think that's also, you only get like you and other people have commented on my very sort of like candid style, right? I just hop on the camera. That's not how I created content with my first few
when
posts.
You started out,
I didn't. It's a muscle. You know, you're not going to get a six-pack by sitting on the couch thinking about a six-pack. You're going to get a six-pack by doing the crunches every day and the core. You need to work that muscle. So the ease with which I am candid and unfiltered, that has also come with being consistent, because the more you create content, the more you show up as yourself, and not just in a social space, in a like a social environment, events, things like that. The more you do that, the more you figure out what feels like home.
Yeah.
And when you find those things that feel like home, and that can be how you're showing up on camera, it can be what you choose to wear to something, it can be how you hold yourself. When you start to feel at home, then it's effortless.
Yeah.
But it takes a long time to find that home.
Yeah.
You've got to go many places and then you land there.
Speaking of at home, you know, you're a wife and a mother as well. And there are many different hats that you got to juggle, you know, with your career as well. How do you find a balance between all of that? Is there such a thing as a perfect balance between, you know, your ambitions and family life?
Balance. What lies? Balance is one of the biggest. I think that, you know, I did a post recently where I said, please, like, you cannot have it all.
Yeah.
It's the biggest load. I'm going to use like an old school word, but like it's hogswash, because I can't swear on here. It's because you can't have it all. And I'm not saying don't go after your dreams, don't settle for second best. I'm saying you can't have it all the time.
Yeah.
So for me, when it comes to balance, there was a wonderful address given by Shonda Rhimes. I think it's called the Glass Ceiling Address. And in one of the parts, you know, she speaks about the fact, you know, when she's up there winning an Emmy, she's missing a dance recital. When she's at the dance recital, she's not writing what she needed to be writing for Grey's Anatomy, one of the shows. And she uses a wonderful analogy. And in life, there are rubber balls and there are glass balls. So every day of my life, I try to figure out, right, which are the glass ones? Those you got to keep in the air. Which are the rubber ones? You're going to bounce into tomorrow or next week. Off you go.
Yeah.
And that's, for me, is where I get some sense of balance.
Some kind of,
because on any given day, I'm not going to do it all. On any given day, I'm not going to knock it out of the park at work. I'm not going to knock it out of the park as Miss Winderley. I'm not going to knock it out of the park as a wife and a mom at the same time.
Yeah.
I have days where I kill it at motherhood.
Yeah.
And I have days where the mom guilt kills me.
Yeah.
You know? But I think you have to realize that it's so much like healing as well. Balance and healing are so similar. So balance is not linear. You can't be like, I'm going to replicate this structure every day of my life and I'm going to get 30 minutes of this and 60. That's not how life works.
Yeah.
You know, healing is not linear. You're going to have great days where you feel like I'm really through this. And there's a lovely quote that says, you know, healing is linear because it's like a wave. You know, sometimes it rolls straight into shore, great day. And some days it hits a rock. Then that's okay. You're just going to do that. And I think that's the same thing with balance. You have to get really comfortable with imbalance.
Yeah.
As long as you are always focused on the fact that you are just trying to do the best that you can and you're prioritizing the right stuff.
Right.
Like for me, the glass balls are my marriage. I've been married for 17 years. That is an
That's
absolute
incredible.
gift.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I was like a child bride. Got married at 24, guys. If my daughter comes to me and says she's getting married at 24, we're having a stern conversation.
17 years of marriage, and you wonder why I call you evergreen.
Evergreen, honey. I love this term. I might add it to my bio.
There we go.
No, but this is the thing. So my marriage is a glass ball.
Yeah.
Right? My children are a glass ball. But saying that doesn't mean that they have a full-time soccer mom as mom. They don't. They have me as their mother.
Yes.
I'm their mom. And I also want them to see me doing things, working hard, going after my dreams. I desperately want my kids to see that the minute you become a parent, you don't suddenly just become a parent. You're still a human being with the same ambitions that you had, right? But my children are glass balls. My marriage is a glass ball. My health is a glass ball. Not really good at that glass ball 100% of the time. I think that's probably the hardest one to look after because you're so focused on looking after everyone. And Mrs. Winderley for me is a glass ball. My day job isn't a glass ball. My day job is a rubber ball. And someone says it's funny because you work in advertising. You've done it for a long time. I love it. I love being a copywriter. I love being a CD. I have the most fantastic relationship with an agency where they call me a permalancer. I'm like the boomerang that constantly keeps coming back. But the day job is it's somebody else's business. It's somebody else's baby. I'm not building my baby when I'm there. I'm building their baby, right?
Yeah.
So my day job is a rubber ball. So when it comes to an opportunity for Mrs. Winderley, I'm going to very respectfully make a plan and give as much notice as I can, but I'm going to choose to build Mrs. Winderley over building somebody else's business.
All right.
Every time. So I think that's the balance thing for me. It's like, just figure out for yourself what's glass and what's rubber. And on any given day, keep the glass balls up in the air and don't feel bad about letting those rubber ones bounce. It doesn't matter.
Right. I'm intrigued by this term permalancer.
Yes.
And just following everything that you said, and we're trying to figure out,
I'm very
balance.
confusing, guys. My husband hates it when someone asks me what I do for a living. It's a bit hectic, but yes.
Yeah. So does all of that sort of have an influence towards why you chose the decision or made the decision not to have your traditional 9-to-5 and have a bit of a freelance or permalance type of role?
Well, I think that's the thing. I'm a creative at heart. I'm not good at doing the same thing in and out, and I need flexibility. It was actually when I entered Mrs. SA, there were two parts to it. I knew, having a young family, that a time would come when I needed more flexibility outside of a 9-to-5. I didn't want to ask permission to be able to go to a netball game. I knew that would happen. So I will have people say to me, oh, you're so lucky because you can kind of do sort of this half-day vibe. You can dictate your hours. You can say when you are available, when you're not. They say I'm lucky. And I'm like, no, I'm not lucky. It's been a 4-year conscious decision to build the work life that I now exist within. 4 years ago, I knew I had to step down as CD. I knew I had to step up of Exco.
Yeah.
I knew I had to take my foot off the advertising gas. And I think it's important to say, because it's very easy to listen to me say this, and they're like, okay, so she did A, B, and C. When I walked into agency, the day after I'd resigned, or the day that me not being a CD and not being on Exco came into effect, and saw somebody else in my pretty glass office that I'd worked so hard to get into, and realized that I was back into general population, which was like the open plan desks for everybody. My ECD took one look at me. He said, are you okay? And I was like, no. We walked into his office and I burst into tears. And this is where the failure loop comes around. You asked me for a moment of failure. Yeah. I felt in that moment like I was I knew it was the right thing for where I wanted my life to go. I knew that I needed to be a freelancer. I knew that I didn't want to be completely 9-to-5, within... Oh, sorry, guys.
All good.
Guys, that's my husband phoning. I'm going to say message. Sorry, I can't talk right now. His ears
must have been ringing.
I was saying to someone earlier, I was like, he always phones me during an event to ask if I fed the dogs. Yeah. That was probably what that was in connection with. But I haven't lost my train of thought.
Yeah.
Okay, so so that first day that I arrived back, right, now I'm no longer a CD, no longer an Exco. I felt like I'd been stripped of a title or part of my identity. And although it was the right move for me to make, I felt like I was failing in a professional sense.
Okay.
And I said to my ECD, I said, I just feel like I failed. Was this the right thing to do? Because it feels a bit like career suicide. I'm literally kind of where I always wanted to be. And now I'm saying thanks, but no thanks, to go and pursue social media, content creation, hope that things come, to go and do a pageant. And he said something which really reframed things for me. He said, you feel like you're failing in this aspect, but you have to see it as you have to fail in this aspect to succeed in the others that you want to.
Right.
And it was such a simple little shift.
Yeah.
And I just realized in that moment, how much of my identity was tied into my job title in that moment. And that's why the job has become a rubber ball, because that can't be my entire identity, So being a permalancer enables me to go into agencies for a prolonged amount of time. So I build relationship with clients. I build relationship with the people I work with, because I'm a relationship person. I'm big at long-term relationship. For me, I believe that everything I'm building and I have built as a result of being a fan of the long game. I'm not into short and cheerful and, those sorts of things. I think that you need to build. So permalancing lets me still get the elements of advertising that I love. I still get to work on big accounts and big brands with great budgets and get that side of my creative soul fed. But the flexibility means that I'm not sacrificing building something that's my own.
Right. Look, it's quite interesting, describing that situation, at work where you making the decision out that, you want to focus on building your own brand. And you described it as a moment where for you, it felt like you were failing at something. But on the other side of the coin, my perception of that is that, this is a powerful moment because you're deciding, look, you've come to a point where you know who you are, what it is that you want to do, and you're taking ownership of that. So to me, that sounds liberating. It sounds powerful. And it's interesting that in such a powerful moment, you can still have such an internal conflict and feel like you're failing at something.
Absolutely. I think that's, whenever you see somebody doing something that you think is brave, or you think, I wish I could do that, or, they make it look easy. I always say it takes so much effort to make anything look effortless. And those decisions are not easy because you're literally turning down something that's pretty guaranteed and stable to go and pursue something that's not guaranteed, to open yourself up to failure.
Yes.
And I think that's also why failure's become this kind of cornerstone of me as a human, is because, yes, you've got to open yourself up to failure, and you've got to be brave enough to say, right, I'm going to fail. There's another failure around the corner. And I've always said, every no for me, it's just like, okay, so when I get a no, when I get rejected, when something doesn't work out, I'm like, oh, that's fantastic. One closer to the yes. And I've learned to look at it that way. Like, you have to go through those failures.
Yeah.
And don't let the fact that it makes you feel a bit like sad or nauseous or scared deter you, but really look inwards and figure out where that's coming from. Where's that fear coming from? And I think when you can have those tough meetings with yourself, then you're like, okay, so no, this is some inner narrative that I've just listened to it for too long, or someone said something to me in school, my parents said something, or I'm scared about what people will think. I mean, that's the worst reason not to do anything.
Yeah.
Because who cares what people think?
Yeah.
At the end of the day have to get to the end of your life and be like, I did the most with it, right? That's what it comes down to. But these things are not easy. Failing sucks.
Failing sucks,
but it can be freaking powerful.
It can be. And the moment where you've realized the lessons that you needed to learn and going through that failure, that is where the power comes from.
Yes.
I think you and I could easily do a world tour called the Failure Experience.
Please.
Because I tell you, like,
the ultimate hype girl, team failure. Let's go.
Let's do it. I've had a sort of a similar journey. There are slight differences, with my story, because I also, I left a permanent, secure structure at a point in my life where I was sort of climbing the corporate ladder.
Okay,
and things were so easy for me in the corporate space. If I just thought about a promotion that I wanted to go for, I'd apply for it and I'd get it, and it was just effortless, but it wasn't me. And then I made the decision, and I guess the lesson I needed to learn in all of this and at that time was humility. And I see that now because I was very arrogant. I left my job without hesitation. I knew I wanted to get into the music industry and I was just going to blow up and make it big. And that was not the case. So my journey took a hard detour. You were faced with harsh realities, and so many times that, you want to give up and you just can't find the energy to pick yourself up and keep going. But it's hearing, stories from, people like yourself that help you, find the strength. With me as well, it comes down to faith as well.
Yes.
Prayer, reading the Bible and, just building that relationship with God and helping him to realize what the intent of my purpose is, so that I'm not doing my will, but his will. So I think with you realizing that as well, and you telling your story, into your phone, I think that's what makes you helped make you so popular. People could relate to you and your story.
Yeah, being called popular and stuff is great, right? But what you said there made so much sense around humility in the journey, because I said earlier, hard work is not always rewarded. I wanted to do things as a child. I wanted to go to a certain school. I got a scholarship. I wanted to go to an art school in London. I was the youngest person there. I was the only South African they've ever taken. I was so naive. I got in. Whenever I applied myself, whenever I set my eyes on a goal and I did the work, I got the results. It's so interesting what you said to me about humility now.
Yeah.
And being being humbled is often really, really necessary. I've never been an arrogant person. Like I said, I grew up with not a lot of confidence, right? But I had managed to be successful when I applied myself. So when I wanted to get into a certain high school, actually my sister drove the process, but when she decided we were going there and the only way we could go there was based on a scholarship, my sister and I got the scholarship, got to the school. When I wanted to go to a fancy art school in London, I applied myself, I got the work. So when I've applied myself in my life, I've gotten the result.
Yeah.
Advertising. I'm not trained in advertising. I accidentally fell into freelance writing when the painting wasn't paying off. You know, my business is called The Not So Starving Artist.
Yeah.
Because I was a starving artist and then the writing let me be not so starving.
Yeah.
So that's what my business is called, The Not So Starving Artist.
Yeah.
And then I accidentally did a bit of freelance writing, got into the agencies, went from a junior to a mid to a senior to a CD very, very quickly. When I'd worked hard, I got the results and I didn't fail. So when I worked hard and I didn't get the results and I failed, like you say, it's that I definitely needed that little humbling.
Yeah.
And I also needed to be pulled back. We both share faith.
Yeah.
I also had to be pulled back to my faith.
Yeah.
And I think that was definitely a big part of it. I'd become so self-sufficient and so confident in my own abilities that I'd neglected to see God's hand was actually in every one of those successes before.
Yeah.
So it was a moment. It was definitely, I think that humbling thing it's necessary to be broken down to be built up. It sounds cheesy as well.
Yeah.
But it's also very necessary when you're in that moment, like you said, when you're being humbled. It's very tempting to blame external factors.
Oh yeah.
It's this one, it's that opportunity. It's very easy to go out. And actually the only way you navigate that successfully is by going internally and looking at your own role in what's going on and really holding yourself accountable.
Yeah.
That can be hard.
It is hard. Yeah. 100%.
Because you might find, like what you said, I'd like to hear what you say about this, but it wasn't going well. You were humbled. Did you have a meeting with yourself and figure anything out about why it wasn't? Oh.
So, yeah, and that's such a hard thing because you have to face yourself and you have to face that thing that's going on internally. And you kind of make excuses for it. It's almost like it's something it's latching on from the inside. It's hard to, it's like a possession almost.
It is.
Right? So it could be something like pride, or, you got so used to this kind of mindset that this is, what you want to achieve and this is what you want to do when you achieve those things. And it's also, if I take it from a faith perspective and a spiritual perspective, I can say that it was all worldly desires and clearly things that God did not want for me. And that was hard to sort of burn out, purge out, and prune out. And it's such an uncomfortable experience.
It's
but once
so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I liken it to having a root canal without an anesthetic. Would not want to go through 2021, 2022 again, personally, myself.
Yes.
But it was worthwhile.
Yes.
And I think you said something, when you are doing it external validation, external stuff, but when it's plugged into your purpose, when you literally figure out what the reason is, Pageant Land says you need to know your why. And that's probably one of the things that I love the most about my pageant was really figuring out what my why is. So when you say, why TikTok, why social media, why Mrs. Winderley, I can genuinely tell you it's to speak to the woman I was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I genuinely want to help other human beings, other women, kind of figure out what I figured out over the past 2 years. I am decidedly average. I'm not a musician. I'm not an actress. I don't come from any particular family. I didn't grow up, with amazing resources. I mean, I had privilege to a certain extent, but I was raised by a single mom. I mean, I'm pretty average. I'm a 42-year-old woman who decided that she wanted to build a personal brand on social media and wanted to be in certain rooms, and pageantry decided I wasn't good enough to be in those rooms. So I was like, I'm going to get myself in those rooms myself. And I want other women, other human beings to kind of just see me and go, well, sure, but if she can do it, surely I can do it too. And that may sound like a strange why or purpose, but I genuinely believe that God has used my story, He used my breaking, He used my humbling, He used all of that to get me to a point where I can hopefully help to just ignite something in someone else.
There we go. Yeah.
And they go, oh, well, look at Miss Winderley. okay, well, if she can figure it out, maybe I can figure it out. That's all I want.
Oh, that is, there's power in the testimony.
Test in the testimony is one of my favorite things. There is a test in the
testimony. Yeah, there is a test in the testimony.
And a testimony in the test. It's like and then that's exactly it. Like there is no testimony. There is no testimony without a test. And, the first time I ever spoke without stuttering was about a year after Mrs. SA. A friend of mine phoned me up and she said, another pageant is having their kind of opening first event workshop, and I want you to come and speak. And I was like, Lolo, I can't speak. I can barely get a sentence out most days, especially, and I was also emotional. So when I'm emotional, then the stutter gets worse. And she said, I'm not taking no for an answer. You're coming to do it. I'm coming to do it. And as I was driving to Pretoria, I had the normal pageant land spiel planned. I knew what I was going to say. The normal pageant land spiel, the rah-rah, pep talk, wonderful thing you're doing, all that sort of stuff. And God really put it on my heart to speak about failure and how I was really feeling a year out of Mrs. SA. Yeah. And I was terrified. I thought, no, this can't be what I'm going to speak about. Anyway, I did it. I opened my mouth and I started speaking, and a friend of mine was filming me. And it was only afterwards when I watched the video back, it said, she hasn't stuttered once. She hasn't stuttered once. She hasn't stuttered once. And that was the first time I'd ever spoken just from a place of complete truth. And I opened that speech by saying, right, 99% of you are going to get your hearts broken and you're going to lose. So best I tell you how that feels so that we can move on. And people, and I thought that they would be received so badly by the pageant land community. I thought, oh my goodness, Sherinne, you're going to get yourself cancelled. You're never going to be invited to a pageant land thing again. But no, it resonated with a lot of people. Yeah. And then I realized, you know what? 99% of women who embark on a pageantry journey don't get the result they want. There were 24 finalists in my year. So I decided to call myself the 23rd princess. Okay. I was like, that's what I was essentially. I didn't know where I came. I was the 23rd princess. And then I realized, so I started to speak from that perspective as the 23rd princess. And then I realized everybody has these moments in their life where they're the 23rd princess. You don't get the job you wanted. You're the 23rd princess. You date somebody and break up with them and they marry the next person. You're the 23rd princess. You're always going to have a moment in your life or a season where you feel like the 23rd princess. And that was the first time, that time I spoke, that's where the 23rd princess was born. She was born out of that talk. And it was just remarkable to me that when I truly, truly, truly just opened up, was honest with women, that was the secret sauce. I was like, oh, so all along, all I've had to do to free up my vocal cords is just be honest and to speak about what's not great. Because we're so good at celebrating victory. Yeah. We're really not good about navigating failure with each other openly.
Wow. Does having a background and experience in advertising help you sort of narrow down or help you find what your voice is going to be on social media and help you define, your role as Mrs. Winderley and what that's going to look like and be all about?
Absolutely. I think having worked
gives you an unfair advantage.
Yes. But it's very fair, guys. I've worked, if you've worked in advertising, someone that does very long hours. I've earned the advantage.
Yeah, there we go.
Definitely earned the advantage. If you've worked on pitches, you'll know. I think that I have definitely had a lot of experience with brands, other brands I've worked with or brands I've admired. I understand what builds a good brand.
Yeah.
And I think that what builds a good brand is you have to differentiate yourself. You can't be the same as everybody else.
Yeah.
What builds a good brand is consistency. What builds a good brand is sweating your assets, they call it, sweating your assets. So like I have certain assets as Mrs. Winderley, my life experiences, things. Just because I've mentioned 23rd Princess once doesn't mean I only mention it once, because I don't know. So that's an asset that I sweat. You will see it's a common theme in what I speak about because it's such a key part in what I do.
Yeah.
Also, I understand a brand strategy. I understand media spend. I understand media budget. I understand placement. I understand targeting. I understand all these things that come from advertising. I start with concept and we go into rollout and production. So I have a very good rounded view. Social media or being Mrs. Winderley, I'm just an agency of one. So I am my own strategist. I am my own client service. I am my own creative writer production department. And so it does let me put a lens on it that I think is a huge advantage, because when a brand comes to me and they want to give me a free mascara for 17 posts and the rights to my children and 2 kidneys, I'm like, hold on a second. My little square is like putting a billboard at that perfect spot, except my little square, you're going to be speaking to women between 25 and 45 in Joburg and Cape Town. So I think I'm savvy, which does help,
Right.
And I also just think in terms of longevity, if you look at any brands that have had longevity, they've stayed pretty timeless. They've stayed pretty true to themselves. They will adapt, but they don't get dragged along with every trend and every new shiny toy. And I think that's also something that I hold quite dear. I am who I am. So I'm not always going to be super topical or current or fresh or those sorts of things, but I can only be who I am.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what it is.
And I think the audience can agree that you're an exceptional storyteller. Is storytelling a part of your pitching process when you are pitching to other brands?
Yes.
Or how do you help a brand, tell a good story?
I think brand story is interesting, right? I think because a lot of people tend to shy away from their brand story. I've definitely had experience over the past, it's almost 20 years ago, like now that I started, it's where you get briefed on a brand story piece, and it's never called the brand story. It's called, like something else, their narrative or the golden thread or manifesto, whatever they want to use on the day.
Right.
And I've actually, sometimes the initial story you get, there'll be a little nugget, a little something in there, and you're like, tell me more about that. Okay. And then a lot of brands do want to shy away from the real story. They do want to shy away from the origin story. And I love the origin story.
But that's what's going to connect to your market and your audience.
Let's find the thing that finds you your market.
Yeah.
And that's also, you're not going to appeal to everybody. There was a great Marmite campaign years ago. And the thing with Marmite, you love it or you hate it. Nobody sits in the middle. You don't kind of like Marmite or you hate it or you love it.
Yeah.
And I think of myself as a Marmite brand. And I think every brand should be a Marmite brand. And that's definitely something I've experienced. You're not going to appeal to everybody. So find your Marmite.
I actually... Interesting about Marmites. I think they used to make such good ads when I was a kid that I just wanted to experience Marmite and have it. And I forced my parents to buy Marmite. And when I had a taste,
You're
it was
a lifer
just not
now.
for me.
You see, but that's great advertising,
it's
right?
It's great advertising.
So there's that.
They sold their product.
You have to establish a connection with somebody.
Yeah.
And the other thing I want to say here is I often get approached by other content creators, aspiring content creators, people, and they want to do something or they want to get on social media or they want to monetize things or, things like that. You can't fake it. I think authenticity has almost become trendy now. Everyone's authentic. Everyone's vulnerable. It's overused. But I still think there's huge power in it.
How do you find true authenticity then if it's such a common thing? Like you say, everybody's using the word, everybody's authentic. So where do you locate? How do you find something that is truly authentic?
Well, that's the thing I said just now about finding your home, your who you are.
Right.
That's genuinely authentic to you. Not authentic is not showing up without makeup on. Everyone always thinks, everyone's like, oh no, I'm gonna show up barefaced. Now I'm being authentic. I'm gonna If you are authentically, like some of my friends are, the kind of people who wake up looking like a supermodel and will not leave a house without lash and extensions, whatever. I don't want to see you with no makeup on because that is not authentic to who you are. I just want that authenticity thing, that staying authentic. It shouldn't feel like such hard work.
Yeah.
You should be in the pocket. It should feel effortless. It should just be the easiest way for you. Like if we talk about social media, like the easiest way to show up. I don't think about it. When I post something from my car, I arrive home just after the kids, I unbox something, I do whatever. I'm not thinking, oh, maybe I should stand here or my background's a bit messy. It's so effortless. I'm just being myself. And the minute you find yourself slanting, tailoring, then you're not being authentic. And if you're asking yourself, oh, I really need to be more authentic in this next piece of coffee. No. If you literally are like, next time I really should be more authentic. No. Because then it's forced. It's not natural. Forced. It's not who you are. Just show up as you are and it'll figure itself out.
Yeah. Well said. What are some of the things that agencies sometimes can get wrong or do wrong that sort of brings a disconnect between a brand and their audience? Have you experienced anything like that?
Yeah, I I think that brands, I'm not going to mention particular brands, but I think there are several brands that underestimate the audience.
Okay.
Definitely underestimate the audience. I mean, I look at how we are asked to different demographics or LSMs, or you'll present work and it'll be said, oh no, but is that like too highbrow for this audience, or too lowbrow for this audience, or this audience is this stuff. And I think that that's what a lot of brands get wrong, is that they start talking to demographics and target markets and LSMs, and they stop talking to humans. And like if you're speaking to women, it blows my mind. If you're speaking to women come from all sorts of different ages, life stages, seasons, demographics, income brackets, all that sort of stuff. So when you're speaking to a woman, you're not speaking to a demographic. You have to speak to them. You have to find that one thing that resonates with that every woman has in common, that one little nugget at 14 or 64. It's not about demographics. And so that's what I find frustrating, is like you come with a concept, you come with an idea, and people are like, yeah, but will they get it? Or won't they get it? Or is it too intelligent for this? Or the research shows. I think that if you are presenting work, or you're receiving work that's being presented to you, and you have an emotional, guttural reaction to it, it's the right work to make.
Right. So do you think then, on that note, that maybe sometimes agencies are at fault, or they maybe most of the time yes men, instead of challenging the brand and say, look, I get what you're saying, but the best way to connect to an audience, or to sell a product to your market, is by doing X, Y, Z, you know?
I think it's yes and no.
All right.
Because the agencies that I work with, and the main one that I work with, they push great work, and they fight for great work, and they fight for their clients, and they're not scared to have uncomfortable conversations.
Cool.
They can have those uncomfortable conversations because they have a relationship with client, long-term relationship with client, and there's trust. When you have trust, you can take work to a whole new level. You know, when there is that trust, you can have the tough conversations, you can do those things. No, because I do think that a lot of other agencies become fearful to push back against a client for fear of losing the business.
Yeah.
I think client can sometimes not be brave enough.
Yeah.
And I've worked over the years with some incredibly brave, wonderful clients who really know what they want. And I think that you have to also, it's long game, right? It's just understanding where do you want your brand to be 10 years from now? And you are probably going to have to, if anyone from agencies is watching this, they're going to freak out. But failure, you may have to do 1 or 2 campaigns that bomb to find that happy space again, to get to where you're going. And when you look back in 10 years' time, it all started with that campaign. Remember that one? Whew, we're glad we did it, because it shook things up and it changed our perspective and it reframed things for us. So, yeah, I'd say that there's no agency that's not doing the work. There's no client that doesn't want their brand to be successful. There's no creative team that doesn't want to make great work.
Yeah.
I just think that fear comes into it. Money comes into it. Budgets aren't what they were 10 years ago. There's also fear sometimes to do things a bit differently.
Okay.
But my experience is that there's a hell of a lot of brave thinking at the moment.
Oh, that's a good thing, right? So juggling between the advertising, creating content, writing, speaking, whatever the case may be, do you sometimes feel like it's just this constant pressure on you that you always got to be switched on? Does the creativity ever run dry? Do you ever experience moments of burnout? How do you combat that? Like, how do you stay switched on? So
at least once a day when someone asks me how I'm doing, I say I'm questioning all my life choices. If I'm honest.
Yeah.
No, because it's a lot, and it can be a lot, and it's like having a lot of tabs open on the browser, right?
Yes.
And I feel like I fritz sometimes. Like I have a moment I need to get into. I'm a petrol station chiller.
That's such a visual analogy. I can literally see all the tabs.
Yes, freezing. Yeah. Like I'm a Mac user, so a little spinning wheel of death that looks like and. So there's 10 minutes every day that I find myself a petrol station. I sit in my car in silence, and my mom will hate me saying this, but have a little sugar-free Red Bull and a little salami stick, or occasionally a good cry, or a power nap. Okay, people are thinking this woman's mad, but like true story, because there's a lot going on, and I think as a creative you can get burnt out. I definitely have to change lanes between Adland and Mrs. Winderley, because Adland I'm playing within a guideline, a set of rules, different clients not of my choosing either.
Yeah.
They're clients chosen by the agency, and I get to work with them, which is great. Mrs. Winderley, I get to choose who I work with, which is great. I think what helps is separation of church and state. So Sherinne is Sherinne and Mrs. Winderley is Mrs. Winderley. Yes, we're the same person. I'm not delusional. But that ability to be like, so I know when I'm going to an event, Mrs. Winderley is going to the event. Then Mrs. Winderley will be there with her phone. She'll do the content. She'll do the things that are. But Sherinne goes somewhere. Sherinne's not going to do that. I won't document everything.
Yeah.
I have that differentiation, right? But I also take, this is probably a bit of a life tip, and a bunch of creators will think this mad, but I take 4 to 6 weeks off social media completely at the end of every year.
Yes, you mentioned that to me before.
I say gone fishing on my bio and I disappear, right? For a moment of time. And some people will be like, that's crazy. That's like social media suicide. The algorithm's going to forget you. Your following is going to drop. It's like, and what's your problem? I'm going to come back with a great tan and awesome memories. And, I think it's really, really important to take pockets. That's obviously a big example, taking a number of weeks off at the end of the year. But at every week and every day, I try to have a moment that's more offline presence than online presence. My phone's on airplane mode when I need a pocket with my kids. I don't have my social media notifications, don't come up on my phone. I have to go into the app to search for them. I just think that it's very easy to become a slave to everything, especially with social media. You've got to post this amount of times a day. You've got to do this. Otherwise, don't let the tail wag the dog.
Yeah.
You need to use social media for what you want to use it for. It can't become this controlling thing. You like it can't be all consuming, and you can't always see your life through a lens either, But I think we want to talk about creative burnout. Creative burnout is definitely real. And that's why stepping away, taking breaks from it are so important. It will all be there when it's gone.
Yeah.
Like even advertising, I find maybe it is because I'm older and I'm in my 40s, but we'll have a particularly stressful period, and some of the younger creatives, I can see them getting all wound up. And I have to say to them sometimes, I'm like, guys, you realize, we're not curing cancer. We're selling banking and beer. It's all going to be okay. If that banking ad goes out 2 days late, the world is still going to turn. So I think perspective is important. Offline presence is important. Giving yourself a break is important. And also just the algorithm, guys, it's an algorithm. It's not even a living, breathing entity. And if you lose 1,000 followers because you take some time off, what's the problem? Really, what is the problem?
Well,
really, no. What is the problem?
But yeah, I mean, there are people out there having meltdowns when something like that happens.
You can't, and that's what I said. That's the most formative thing in me over the past 5 years is the difference between external validation and internal confidence. Social media metrics are external metrics. I love that they're called vanity metrics because they really are vanity metrics. Numbers of likes, followers, those sorts of things. And it's an external form of validation. So if your mood, it's such a simple thing, right? Someone explained it to me once. I think it was one of the many hours I spent in therapy a few years ago that said to me, you have to just pay attention to how something makes you feel to know how much hold it has on your life.
Yeah.
So if a piece of content performing badly makes you feel a certain way, that means you're now not fully present. For me, in my case, with my husband, with my children, if it alters my mood, it's like a barometer. The more it alters your mood, the more it controls you and holds you captive. If you can get to the point where a piece of content bombs and it doesn't affect your mood at all, then you're putting it in the place it's meant to be in your life.
Yeah.
I should be, if I am more affected by something that happens on social media than I am by my daughter coming home to say that someone was mean to her at school, if my barometer goes like this for social and like this for my kid, it's time to call a meeting with myself.
Right.
Again, like glass balls, rubber balls, what's really important? And especially as I've built Mrs. Winderley, and I've had moments where I've pulled in and out of this, as we all do, and I've had to course correct a few times. But it's very, very, very important that it does not have so much of a hold on you that you let go of the stuff that matters.
Yes,
I can't emphasize that enough.
Absolutely. Now, social media makes me anxious. It gives me anxiety so much so that I probably take way too many breaks from it than I should be.
Living the dream, buddy. Living the dream. There's a couple of content creators going, I would love your life right now.
So, speaking of taking a break from social media, I just want to sort of take a break from that part of the conversation for a little while and just speak to you a little bit about little lenses.
Yes.
Yes. So, I mean, that is something, very personal to you. And it was inspired by your daughter's visual challenges. Could you talk to us more about little lenses and the initiative?
Yes, sure. I'm
Yep.
so sorry. Oh, you guys are going to have to edit, eh?
That's all good.
I don't know why this random person, guys. And my phone is on silent, but it's behind my bum. I keep buzzing. Okay. So little lenses, I have to go back a little bit.
Yeah.
So when my daughter was born, we didn't notice it initially, but she had a bit of a squint that we started to notice within the first sort of 3 or 4 months.
Right.
And there was no history of, it's called strabismus is the fancy term, but I'll call it a squint for now. There was no history of that in our family really, at least none that I knew of in like sort of recent family history. And got about 4 or 5 months, and whenever I took a photo of her, I would notice the one eye pulled inwards. And her pediatrician and doctors and stuff said, no, it's perfectly normal up to 6 months. Don't worry, she'll grow out of it, da da da. And it just didn't feel like, again, trust your gut, that like mother's instinct. It just felt like there was something more going on there, right?
Yeah.
And we ended up taking her to a specialist, and they were like, okay, so your daughter currently doesn't have 3D vision. Her 2 eyes operate independently, not together, so she has no depth perception. And we were like, sorry, we don't have any history of this in our family. And anyway, she got glasses at 8 months. Now, as a mother, getting told that your 8-month-old baby requires glasses is quite something.
Yeah.
And then we were told that she needed surgery because you have to reconnect. You actually have to correct the muscles behind the eyeballs and stuff, because we needed to get those pathways in the brain to work together so that she could have 3D vision. Now, you have to remember that without 3D vision, you can't get a driver's license. You've got no depth perception. You can't tell how far something is. So suddenly her funny little crawling pattern she had, where she shuffled on her bum and moved one leg, and she always had a hand. She used to reach forward and back for her bottle. It's because she didn't actually know how far it was, right? So the thing is, little lenses was born out of my experience with that. So Erin had 2 eye surgeries before the time she was 2. She had her glasses. There were all these interventions. We had access to resources. We had medical aid. We also, my sister is a phenomenal occupational therapist with a specialty in neurology. So we had all the information. We had access to be able to pay for the surgeries, which weren't fully covered by like medical aid. And the scariest thing was that if we hadn't intervened with Erin within the first 1,000 days, it's a use it or lose it thing with the neurons. So we couldn't have reestablished those pathways effectively. So little lenses was genuinely born out of the fact that I'd never really seen a baby with glasses. I didn't know that pediatric eye care at that age was so important. And I realized how important fixing a squint in children was.
Yeah.
And so it started out with just telling our story at a few mom and baby groups, and then moms had asked to meet me for coffee, and then we got the opportunity to raise some funds, and now we've got a really good network. We've I think we're sitting at about 100, it's 130 or 140 kids that we've either done eye test, glasses for, interventions, whatever, ophthalmologists and optometrists. And it's so simple. Like it's as simple often as a pair of frames, and it doesn't cost even a lot, but it's access to that, right? So Little Lenses is my passion project. Erin is my co-founder.
Yeah.
She comes to all screening days and everything with me. It's her legacy.
Yeah, that's
It's not
great.
mine. I just started it.
Yeah.
But that's what Little Lenses is about, because I just think that vision is so important, and that's why it's like really close to our hearts.
That's incredible. Another sort of description I've read about you is that that you use the phrase business winning, not award winning, right? Is that your way of saying that you care more about impact rather than applause, and what is the mindset behind that?
Well, I think having come through an advertising background and being there today, there was a distinction when I started. It's not so much that way anymore, but you did work on brief. So a client would brief you on a project, and you would do work according to the brief, and then you would do proactive work for awards, which was blue sky thinking. Like you wanted to make something really cool for a brand to win an award. And I think that the sweet spot for me has always been when you can answer a brief that came in from client, create a campaign for them that happens to win an award.
Yeah.
The award is the sugar on top. But when I say business winning, it actually has to bring the brand business. It has to bring in sales. It has to bring in money. It has to do the job for the brand, because a lot of award-winning campaigns, yes, they were brilliant and great creative thinking, but did they move the needle for the business or not? And I think that line of thinking for me applies to social media and what I do in social media as well, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about being paid for a piece of content. That piece of content needs to translate. It needs to build that business, whether it's a small business or a big business or a brand. It needs to translate to their bottom line.
Yeah.
So I've always been one of my favorite things to be involved in. It's harder now that I have kids and all those demands, but I love pitches because you are getting to do proactive award-winning thinking for a brand, but you're winning that business for an agency. You win business for an agency, they get to hire more people, they get to grow, the actual advertising agency gets to grow, they get to make money. So a pitch for me is kind of the sweet spot, the best of both worlds. But also with me, you know, I want to help other women, other brands. I want to help them grow. I want to be able to use my platform for something that's not just a vanity metric. You know, my mom phrased it really, really beautifully a few years ago. She said, you don't have a pedestal, you have a platform.
Yeah.
And that's very meaningful to me because you're not building a pedestal. A pedestal is a long, narrow column with one person at top.
Yeah.
A platform is broader, which lets you bring other people up with you.
That's beautiful, yeah.
So I always have this kind of like business winning, not award winning, platform, not pedestal filter that I inwardly apply to decisions I make or brands I choose to partner with or things I decide to do, because I think it's not about the accolade, because you win an accolade, it's a pretty trophy. Maybe it's one post on social media, yay, I won this award. There's something standing in the trophy. But if you haven't moved the needle for a business, then what have you actually done? And are you actually that good at your job? Because your job is not to win awards. Some ECDs would argue with me on that. They say, as a creative, you need to win awards. But it's a part of your job. But your job is to build a business or a brand.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And then finally, Sherinne, it brings me to sort of the closing question to what has been an incredible time with you.
Thank
I feel
you.
like we could still chat for hours and hours. But I just want to, ask you, what sort of advice would you be able to give to someone who feels, they're getting lost in the social media algorithm, their voice isn't being heard, what can they do to sort of get themselves going and give their voice purpose and pick up momentum?
Be embarrassing.
Right?
Like I think they say, don't be cringe. Be cringe.
Okay.
Cringe is wonderful. Cringe is great. Being embarrassing is fantastic. Like don't be scared. Don't be scared of embarrassing yourself. Like there's this fear that you are somehow, it's too cringe. You know what's cringe? A 42-year-old mom of two showing up on TikTok. What's cringe is a 42-year-old mom of two signing to like a modeling agency and like being the Andalix throat spray girl. That stuff is cringe. Bloody wonderful cringe. Half of the opportunities that I get today wouldn't happen if I hadn't been cringe. And I think that's my advice. Like just be an embarrassing woman. Someone commented on something about a year or so ago, and I think it was one of the ads I'd done or commercials I'd done. And they were like, how embarrassing. And I was like, yes. How embarrassing that a 42-year-old woman is like showing up and getting to do all these cool things. I choose to be embarrassing 7 days a week, twice on Sundays. Like that would be my advice. Like get out of your own head, stop strategizing and planning and preparing yourself. We live in this, like so many people live in this limbo.
Yeah.
I'm learning social media. I'm preparing for social media. I'm figuring out my brand. Stop figuring it out. Post, you'll figure it out along the way. Build the plane in the air. And I think that's the only way. And also people are very self-absorbed. Nobody cares as much as you think they do. You have to just do you. And if you do, it's like you post something, people are goldfish. Once around the bowl and they've forgotten about it. I think we also just don't take yourself so seriously. Like I said it about advertising, but I sell banking and beer. I'm not curing cancer.
Yeah.
Do I love my job? Yes, I love my job. Do I enjoy it? Yes. Does it feed my soul? Yes. But we've got to stop taking it so seriously. it's important, but it's not life-changing. Social media is not life and death, really. You know, it's a wonderful thing to be on. It can be a phenomenal tool. I mean, I wouldn't be where I am without it. 100% without a TikTok account. Mrs. Winderley, who's that? You know? Yeah. But imagine I hadn't. Imagine that youngster at work had said, start a TikTok account, and I said no. The past 3 years of my life have been so much fun. I'm in rooms and I'm invited to things, and I get to do stuff that I would never have done.
Absolutely.
You take one little decision for me. Oh, what would Auntie Joe think? I'm saying Joe. I shouldn't say Joe because Joe's one of my favorite people. But, you know, what would Tunny whoever think? Or what would Grandma think? Or what would that person at work think? Or what would that girl I went to high school think? If I hadn't done that because I was worried about somebody's opinion of me, I think it's important to say that other people's opinions are like none of your business. It's another quote that I really enjoy. They're really are none of your business. And also, do not take directions from somewhere to a place that they've never been. You know, do not take advice from someone whose life you wouldn't want. So that's it. Just start.
Yeah.
Just start.
Yeah. Look, that's all such sound advice. And I just want to say, you know what's cringe is me speaking into the camera going, hey guys, it's me, Terrence. I just want to talk to you about your ish, you know, because I've had moments like that and you just feel like, no, it's not for me because you're struggling to find your voice, connect to an audience and really just be yourself. You always feel like you got to be something else.
I got a lovely piece of advice of someone who's been doing it a long time, and I really respect everything she's achieved. And she said, if you can't do it in one take, you shouldn't be doing it. You shouldn't be posting it. She said, if you're finding yourself trying to do the same thing 3, 4, 5 times in a row, she said, drop it, try again tomorrow. It should be natural. It should feel candid. It shouldn't be labored. And that's also when it comes to finding your own voice and your own formats, you've got to find the thing that you can do consistently many, many times a day or a week. Don't set yourself up with a format that requires too much effort. And there are people who do effort beautifully, but it's not an effort for them. We've all got different skill sets, different giftings.
Yeah.
You know, what comes naturally to somebody else won't come naturally to me, but then I've got stuff that comes naturally to me that doesn't come naturally to somebody else.
Yeah.
So and you even said, you're like, oh, you know what's cringe, me doing this. I'd be like, there are some very cringeworthy creatives who I love because they've kind of embraced their weirdness, their awkwardness. And it's what makes me love them because, again, it comes down to authenticity. You know, you've got to find what's your vibe.
Yeah.
And you'll find your people. You really will find your tribe. And that's like, I just want to say, like, the block button is there for a reason. Deleting comments is is there for a reason. You don't need to keep things in your space that you don't want in your space. That applies for people, that applies for comments, that applies for people you follow. You know, you wouldn't have them around your dinner table. You'd kick them out if they behaved that way. So just curate the space, like protect that space for you as well. You know, find your people.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Sherinne, that was expertly rounded up. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And hey, guess what? We did it in one take. So I guess we meant to be in the space, right?
I can't remember a thing I just said, by the way. I always have interview amnesia. It's like when I watch these things back, I will watch or listen to this back and I'll be like, did we talk about that?
Yeah.
Because it is such a blur, but it's been such an easy conversation. So thank you so much.
Oh, it's just been an absolute pleasure. All right. So there you have it, guys. Remember to keep coming back. Stay locked in with us here on the podcast that ignites your light and keeps it burning bright. That's us. EXC-i8.
Look at that little wrap up, eh? Excite. All right. I can't even do that. Okay. That. You see, when I do it, it's cringe. When I do it, it's cringe. When you do it, it's great.
That was cool.